What was the cruelest thing you have done to a sim in The Sims? Where's the copy pasta where the guy set up a maze to the front door of his sim's house? So his sim would leave for work every morning, come home after work, but it took him so long to get through the maze. As soon as he got home he had to leave for work again the next morning. For eternity. The guy never get to spend a second at home. The game is called Sim Survivor. You make a house of 8 individuals, build them a spacious house, truck them all in, delete the doors, build fireplaces on every wall, have the Sims light them, build plants all over the house, essentially every square foot. Where there isn't a Sim, the place goes up like a tinder box. The Sims then have to put out every fire. Usually you lose about 5 or 6 of them to the blaze. Then the final few must clean up the piles of ash around the house. Here is where you lose a couple to exhaustion. The winner gets a beautiful house with a big graveyard in the backyard for them to go and mourn their butts. Did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world where none suffered, where everyone would be happy? It was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believed that we lacked the programming language to describe your perfect world. But I believe that, as a species, human beings defined their reality through misery and suffering. So the perfect world was a dream that your primitive cerebrum kept trying to wake up from. The cities were abandoned, and the forests echoed song. They danced and lived as brothers they knew love could not be wrong. Food and wine they had aplenty, and they slept beneath the stars. The people were contented, and the gods watched from afar. But the winter fell upon them, and it caught them unprepared, bringing wolves and cold starvation, and the hearts of men despaired. I remember in Sims 2 once your sim perished you could move their tombstone to a public place. So I created a park with tons of trees to make it look spooky. Then I made a household with the maximum amount of Sims, like 7 or 8, and perishing them all by using those cheese to spawn meteors. I then moved all their tombstones to the said spooky park. I did that about 3 times until the park was full of tombstones, and I would force other Sims there at night to have to get spooked by the ghosts. Another time I put a baby in a crib and built 4 to 5 layers of fences and walls around it, then set it on fire. This was to see if the social worker would get stuck. Turns out the social workers in Sims can walk through walls and babies can't perish. Once made a normal Sim and went about his natural life. Everything was completely normal, except he always hated this one other Sim. Every time they met up there'd be an argument or fight. They loathed each other with a passion. Time went on and the two grew old. I noticed the nemesis had a family, while my Sim never married. So I tracked down his granddaughter, convinced her to move in, along with his nemesis, and trapped him in a small room next to their bedroom. I put up a full wall mirror to simulate a one-way mirror, and my Sim spent the rest of his life making woohoo with his enemy's granddaughter while he watched from the next room. On The Sims 4 I had a process of getting free houses, move in with someone then evict them. At first I didn't know I could evict them, so I decided to lock the inhabitants in a shed and leave them to starve to perishment. It was a husband and wife. I gave them one chair, no bathroom, and a radio that played the same song over and over again. Then I let them starve to perishment while peeing the floor and crying. I did something similar. I like to make Sims based off of characters and people, so I made 2 based off of Bruce Wayne and the Joker. Bruce Wayne was very noble and reliable, but I made Joker as evil as I could make a Sim. I really wanted them to live in the biggest mansion in town, but there was a family living there, so I moved in Bruce and Joker, and then slowly perished off the entire family one at a time. Burning, starvation, drowning, I did everything, and kept Joker and Bruce alive, while living in the house. Bruce got super depressed, and would cry at regular intervals, while the Joker would point at him and laugh. So basically, I left a super depressed Bruce Wayne in a house filled with the ghosts of his former adopted family, and the Joker, who made fun of the family while they lived, perished and in their afterlife. When I first started playing I messed up and put the crib in front of the door where the parents couldn't get in to feed it. I had no idea this was the problem and was confused as to why they wouldn't take care of their child. Then I left the room and came back to the child Glenn gone and the parents crying. I didn't know the social workers could take your child, so I just assumed it died. Then the couple got a divorce due to the problems they had in their marriage, met other people, got married and ended up moving in with each other. 4 people, 2 couples, living in the same house with kids. That's the way I found out they could take your kids. And side story, I ended up making Boba Fett come in and rob the place while falling in love with one of the women and then having an affair. It was a weird time. I made my sim a sugar baby who turned into a black widow. She'd meet men at the club, bring them home, and get it on. Then she'd visit their house later and, thanks to the kleptomania tray, just take a bunch of their stuff, then go home and sell it to make rent. Eventually she moved in with a rich sugar daddy and made him break it off with his wife and kick her out. Then the sugar daddy mysteriously perished. Someone wiled over his bedroom door while he was sleeping and he starved to perishment and she inherited all his property. She went from someone to socialite in like 2 in-game months. I was addicted to The Sims and my husband occasionally plays the game, so he made a Sims family in my game. As a joke, I dress them all up as hot dogs. He doesn't play often, and I forgot about his Sims in the game. I turned the aging on in the game and all but one of his Sims had perished of old age. She was still living in the same house he had put her in, and was being mercilessly haunted by the hot dog ghosts of her perished family members. I once made a huge frat house, all had the bro tray, with maximum Sims you can put in a family, 8 I think, sent one into town to befriend a bunch of people, and then had a huge party with all those guests. I think the maximum guest amount is 15, so total 23 Sims in the house. Then I deleted the doors once everyone arrived, and let it fast forward, for days. I lost count on the days, I feel like it was a week, but I know 4 Sims perished in the fire after one of my Sims tried to grill. It was a rager for sure. The guests were congregating where the front door used to be, repeatedly peeing themselves and falling asleep in their own puddle of urine. My Sims would try to sleep in their bed, but guests would wake them up after a short amount of time. I decided to run a Mr. Kef style challenge with a household of 7 Sims and Gordon Ramsay. The Sims would partake in various cooking challenges with Gordon presiding as the judge. However, whenever someone got eliminated, I'd have Gordon lure the poor Sim to the back of the lot and stab them to perishment. Sims mods are great. It continued until only one chef was left alive, and then as victory I'd have them perishment Gordon and then themselves. It was glorious. The premise was this: Gloria Benning, a sexy and single entrepreneur, moved into the home and neighborhood of her dreams, even though she technically couldn't afford the rent. The landlord however offered to lower the rent, so long as his deranged and homeless uncle, Moose Kangi, could live in the tool shed out back. Thinking herself a charitable soul, Gloria accepted. I'm unsure how cruel it is, but holy crap did my brother and I have fun taking turns playing as Moose when Gloria went off to work to screw around in her house. It was required that whenever Moose snuck in we had to say now it's my turn to be Miss Benin. Leave messes for her to clean up, start fires, rock out to industrial techno, etc. I have a household where every generation had one Sim die as a perishment, while everyone else perished from old age, until I got to a single child whose parents focused on maximum their career before having a baby, so they ended up becoming elderly by the time their child became a teenager, and they perished a day after she returned from university. So I now have this young woman who is already damn near the top of her career who just wants to find love, but the ghosts of her family keep scaring away her lovers living in a big empty mansion with a private cemetery in the backyard. I have another Sim whose parents are swingers and they keep stealing his girlfriends, one of whom got pregnant, but they gave the baby up for adoption. He's a bit of a nerd and wants to work in the paranormal field, so maybe I'll get him and the rich girl to hook up. In The Sims 2 I had a couple who was able to live forever. He was a paranormal investigator, and she was a biologist. Through their careers, they got items that allowed them to raise the grave and grow a plant that produced life-giving milk if it ate other Sims. They tricked another guy in the neighborhood to come live with them. He would get eaten by the plant and then raised as a zombie again and again, so the couple could stay eternally young. This Sim robbed my Sim's house, So I got my sim to befriend him, make him fall in love, cheat on his wife and family and ditch them to marry my sim. Then I invited his mother and father and ex-wife and his kids to my place for a BBQ. I ended up burning him and all his family and ex-wife in a room, filled with carpets and fireplaces, no doors or windows. My sim sat on a mezzanine looking down into the carnage below. She was really sad for a while, but ultimately moved on. Don't rob my sim's house.